Well, if you tuned into the race or followed the news coming out on the Pinkbike website and socials in any way, I think the story is pretty obvious. That's right, Finn Isles watches our Pinkbike videos as he was pissed I suggested he was a lazy slob who had to cheat to get on the podium in Leogang. Well, at least that's how some people interpreted it.
Not fit enough my ass, Ben.
Okay, the Finn Cathro beef over rider fitness isn't actually this week's story, and after watching this race in Ligier, I think we can categorically say that fitness isn't the issue. It's the rider's skills. Barely anyone could even get down this track. I mean, come on. 43 racers went down and only 10 of them, 10, managed to stay on their bike from the start to the finish. That's a pitiful 23% success rate. I myself managed to ride most trails top to bottom without crashing at least 50% of the time. I think that means I'm better than like most of them? Well, at least some of them. I mean, it's either that or we just witnessed one of the most challenging track conditions we have seen in a very, very long time. And I'm talking like 2007 Champery kind of time. Also, Amaury did have something on his bike that a lot of his competitors did not. And that may have made a big difference, but we'll get to that. First of all, let's recap what happened with the juniors, or more importantly, what didn't happen. The forecast was always supposed to be mixed for race day here at round 5 of the 2024 Downhill World Cup in Ligier, but it wasn't until the evening before that the weather forecast started to look particularly spicy. The organisers warned teams that they might have to make some tough decisions in the morning, with the weather warnings threatening the running of the lifts and helicopters for medical evacuations. When the morning rolled around, the forecast was still saying pure hunters of rain and sky electricity for the afternoon, so the organisers made the tough decision to cut the junior race from the schedule and use the qualifying results from the previous day as the race results. This was the correct decision, in my opinion, as after the race it absolutely pissed it down, like proper, heavy, torrential rain that we didn't film because we were busy editing. It's the kind of rain you stand and just watch in awe at its pure volume. So yeah, that sucks, but it was a good call. Looking at the junior women's qualifying results, we bore witness to the impressive return to the top step of the podium by Heather Wilson after skipping the last race with concussion symptoms. It felt like the momentum of her season might have been lost with that race missed, but she proved everyone wrong by laying down an excellent run on the challenging track. There were some pretty disappointed mumbles coming out of the other junior races who may have held back in qualifying to stay safe and save energy for finals day. Definitely bad luck if that was the case, but racing is unpredictable, so it's usually a good idea to go for it whenever you are against the clock. Heather did just that and is now third in the overall with 3 wins to her name. Ella Svegby had another cracking weekend, taking her first World Cup podium at her 3rd World Cup race. She's been consistently working her way up the results sheet, and she was very close to taking the win as she was over 2 seconds up on Heather at the midpoint of the track before losing time at the bottom. With consistent riding like that, we'll be seeing her on the podium again this year, and I'm excited to see what she can do at World Champs later in the year. The Kiwi trio were left to fight for the last spot on the podium, and it was the current series leader, Eliana Hulsbosch, who would take it, which helped her maintain her lead in the overall with 2 races left to go. The junior men's category is developing into a real battle between awesome Asa Vermette and the formidable Max Alran. They were both 4 seconds clear of the next closest rider in the race, and they are now leading the series by a decent margin, with Asa on 235 points and Max 23 points back on 212. With 2 rounds left to go, Max would have to win the next 2 rounds and Asa finish in second for Max to win the overall, which feels like a big ask. Stranger things have happened, with mistakes and mechanicals always a constant threat. John Mosel finished up 3rd on the day and has found some great form late in the season with a 4th at the last round and his first podium of the year this round. But actually it's his 2nd podium as a junior, as he finished 2nd here last year, showing that this is a track that he vibes with. Dane Jewett had another consistent race in 4th and now sits 3rd in the overall, with the mathematical possibility of catching the front runners should anything happen at the next few rounds. It's game on going into Ludenville. Let's hope they get to race at that one, given the only other time the junior race has been cancelled was at that venue last year. So the juniors all got to race in the sunshine on Friday. Well, the elites certainly did not. And the combination of hard-packed dirt with a decent clay content in the soil and heavy rain created this thin film of grease that is just the most challenging surface to ride on. The first rider of the elite race was Frida Running, and unfortunately, she set the tone for the day by crashing in that first turn. Louise Ferguson then looked to be on a good one before suffering the same fate as almost everyone else when she slid out in the wet conditions. Then, Eleonora Farina put down a super strong run, stayed on her bike, went into the lead, and with not much data to go on, this didn't seem like that significant a run, but in hindsight, this was an unbelievable piece of bike riding. Every single other elite woman crashed or had a big stalling moment on the run. Every single one. So getting to the bottom clean is really impressive, but she was also pinned. I thought maybe she just went slower and kept it safe, but she was third in Sector 1, second in Sector 2, second in Sector 3, and first in Sector 4, showing she just got faster and faster as she went down the hill. And she was fastest in the speed trap by a considerable margin. The reason I'm laboring this point is that it was a genuine win that she should be proud of, and not just a pure result of luck. There was another couple of riders who almost mounted a successful challenge. Phoebe Gale was up on Eleonora at splits 1 and 2 before losing her balance and then bodying a tree. Her teammate Tanny Seagrave was also up at the splits, but by a considerable margin. Tanny was on a heater, one of those runs that would be talked about for years. Over 5 seconds up and looking to extend when that steep sector that claims so many others took another. Still managing to finish in third place after that crash showed just how much time she had in her non-existent back pocket. Interestingly, series leader Valley Hull was just not on that great a run. If you remove her crash from the situation, she would only have finished third behind Millie, who had a few stalls and close calls in her run. Maybe a safe championship run from Valley and her 5th place finish keeps her out front in the overall, but Tanny is catching. Talking of Millie, that was some super impressive riding from her all week long. It's taking a while, but that was a well-deserved first ever Elite World Cup podium in second. After the ladies demonstrated the sections that were treacherous, the information filtered through teams, friends, and up the hill to the elite men awaiting their final run. This is an extremely interesting situation as racers' performances are just built on a foundation of confidence. If you chip away at that foundation with any negativity or doubt, the whole performance can just come crashing down. So, to be told that nearly every elite female rider fell over because the track is just so slippy right before your run, that's a risky moment. To steer the thoughts from precision and speed into the negative direction of crashing and challenge requires experience and fortitude to turn it into a positive. One man with both of those qualities was the first rider on track, Greg Minnaar. Greg had arguably the worst conditions in a few spots, with the ground still being hard and slick. Comparing where Amory was able to push in and rail, and Greg had to tiptoe while breaking traction really highlights what a great run Greg had. It wasn't the big win people started to think was coming, but it was a great result for the Go and a much needed boost for the Norco team. After Greg, we bore witness to the most crashing we have ever witnessed in a modern elite final. Charlie crashed, Bodie crashed, Austin crashed, Stefano crashed, Max crashed, Jack crashed, Phil crashed, and then Thomas stayed on his bike. He also got the fastest top split and finished on the podium in 5th, which was sick. David crashed, Nathan crashed, Ethan crashed, Ollie crashed, Luke crashed, Benoit crashed, Remy crashed, Oisin crashed, Loris crashed, Jacob crashed, Ryan crashed, Lockie crashed, Finn crashed. And then finally, we get to some riders that managed to get down the hill. This could be because the ground started to soften up and provide a little bit more traction, or maybe the more experienced riders had the head game dialed for these insane conditions. We saw insane runs from Troy Brosnan showing that Aussie dust isn't just his speciality. Andy Kolb trucked his way to a wild 2nd place. Remy Therion was nailing wild lines no one else touched. Lloyd Bruni had a smooth championship ride to maintain his lead in the series, and then, well, Amory happened. Again. I won't repeat the chat from Val de Soleil, as this was a carbon copy repeat of that wild run, but just in more challenging conditions, which made the time gaps even bigger. He's on a confidence high and riding as good as we have ever seen. His strength, his fitness and precision and confidence is maxed out, and he was muscling that bike where it needed to go from top to bottom, where others were fatiguing and losing confidence and form. He is the best downhill bike rider in the world when he is on, and currently he is fully on. Dakota had the difficult task of following peak Amory, and he had a messy run but kept it upright to finish in the top 10 and finish the weekend injury-free and in 5th in the overall. There was something very specific that I noticed about Dakota's run that had my brain firing. Dakota was pulling tear-offs absolutely everywhere. It seemed like every camera angle had him trying to clear his vision. In comparison, I only saw Amory pull one tear-off. So, why the difference? Well, vision gets blocked from two sources: rain falling into the goggle lens and mud and water getting thrown up from the front wheel into that same lens. The see-through peak extenders that everyone installs for wet races help with the rain, and everyone installs mudguards to help stop mud getting flung up into the eyes. But there is a big variety in the mudguards getting used. For some reason, big, long mudguards are not stylish, so a lot of riders will run smaller ones so the bike looks cooler, I guess. Also, some brands make mudguards with more coverage than others. The general rule is the more of your front wheel you can see while in your riding position and looking down at the bike, the more chance mud will end up in your goggles. So the theory is bigger mudguard, better vision. I actually tested this several years ago before I worked for Pinkbike. We might be able to add a link to the video down in the description. If it doesn't break any rules, I'll add it there. We'll see if they remove it. The gist is a long mudguard improves vision by about 50% over a standard shorter mudguard. Anyway, Dakota was running a Fox long mudguard, which is actually visibly shorter than the RRP Pro guard that Amory was running. I think that extra coverage allowed Amory to have a better view of the track, which helped him to perform to that absolutely ridiculous level, whereas Dakota had worse vision, which hampered his performance. Every rider needs a full coverage guard for situations like this. It's a no-brainer. It certainly won't make you ride like Amory in those conditions, but it can't hurt. Well, with that performance, Amory is closing in the overall points leader, Loic Bruni. We have 2 rounds left to go, and there is 216 points between them. There's 400 points available per round, so Bruni doesn't have that trophy in his hands quite yet. Also, we have world champs to contend with first, but that is a while away yet. Enjoy the summer break. I'm off to build a shed in my garden so I can stop storing bikes in my bedroom, and I'm very excited. I'll see you in Andorra. Cool, right, I need to go for a flight, like immediately, like right now. I spent way too long trying to create a results ingester to pull data points. If anyone knows how to do that kind of stuff, any spreadsheet wizards, DM me.